Hello, everyone. I'm Paulette Smith, and I'm the founder of Women Who Rock Ministries. And I'd like to thank you for joining in on our podcast. Our podcast is called Let's Talk About It. And we just want to give women the opportunity to tell their story. Sometimes their voices are not heard, they may be under the radar, but they've done marvelous and wonderful things for their families, their community, their church. And some of the women, most of them, have gone through trials and tests and situations where they had to press their way through. Our series for this podcast is called Victory Under Pressure. And we want women to understand that they can make it through anything if we just continue to press forward. Our topic for today is prayer under pressure. And we have a very, very, very special guest that we want to introduce to you. This woman is powerful. I mean, powerful. She's powerful. She's bold. She's a truth teller. She doesn't hold back any punches. My life has been enriched by just knowing her. And so we want to share her testimony, and we want to share her thoughts and just have a good conversation
Yes.
about prayer under pressure. So I want to introduce you to, at this time, to our very special guest, Evangelist LaToshia Brooks. Thank you for joining us today, Evangelist Brooks. It's my delight to have you. Listen, woman of God, I have had the pleasure of just being in your company and being impacted by your ministry. So I want the people to know a little bit about you. So the stage is yours. So tell
Hello,
us something.
hello, everyone. I'm so glad that I was invited by this awesome woman of God as well. She's awesome. I've always been awesome, and I just love to hear her teach it. They say preach it, but I'm saying she's awesome, and I'm just glad to join. It's an honor, and I thank you for inviting me on. To tell my story because I'm saying I have been through many things, but if it had not been for God on my side, I'm saying I wouldn't have came this far. And I just thank God that I had a praying grandmother. I didn't know anything about God, but I had a praying grandmother. When I would go in her room, I would see her at her chair with her Bible in her lap, either at her bed kneeling down, or either in the den she was had her Bible in her lap, or either at the living room window. She always would pray, and I was just wondering what she was doing. I found out she was just a praying woman, and
Okay.
and after she passed away, I needed that praying grandmother, but I caught on what she was doing because I got strung out on crack cocaine. I was an alcoholic. I was a drug addict and an alcoholic over 20 years. And it was the power of prayer that brought me out. But I didn't instantly come out. I say, God, I need to try you like my grandmother demonstrated. So I got to try you for myself, and I was smoking dope and still praying and calling on God, and then nothing happened, and I kept smoking dope and kept praying, and still nothing didn't happen. I kept smoking dope and calling on God, fill me Lord. Nothing didn't happen, and one day the power of God hit me, and he took the high out the dope, and I've been free since 1999, and I didn't turn back because prayer brought me out. And I give God the glory on this day.
Thank you so much. That is such an awesome, awesome testimony, Evangelist Natasha, and all that you've gone through. It must have been something on the inside of you that drove you, that kept you pushing and pressing. Can you tell us a little bit about what drives you? What's your passion?
Prayer drives me. If it had not been for prayer, I'm gonna tell you, I wouldn't have made it. And I tell people, whatever you do, don't stop praying. We
Mhm.
got to keep on praying. Don't stop praying. The situation can't get no harder. Because one thing I learned, God is the one that's going to bring us out. We got to have that connection with God. And we got to pray when we can't go on. Because God is the only one that can bring us out. And I tried him for myself. You know, there was a time I say, God, if you don't do it, it won't be done. If you don't work it out, it won't be worked out. And I kept pushing and praying. And God, He brought me completely out. I'm going to tell you, I never been to a rehab. And I'm grateful for that. I didn't even know what a 12-step program was. I took one step and God brought me out. And prayer is my answer. So I give God all the glory. But I guarantee you, if you keep praying, you're going to get an answer. If you keep praying and don't give up.
All right, all right. Tasha, I want to ask you just a couple more questions just to kind of get really deep. You have brought us in this conversation just further than what we thought we could go, especially listening and hearing the passion that's in your voice. And I know it's coming up out of your soul and the
Mhm.
things that God has done. I know that you're a woman of power. I know that you're a woman of conviction. And I understand that you're a woman. I tell you, you're driven by your passion for God. And I want to ask you just a couple of questions here. What makes you, we use the term prayer warrior, and there's somebody who fights in the spirit and won't let go. I mean, it's like a bulldog or a pit bull. Once they get a hold of something in prayer, they refuse to let go. So, can you tell and share with us what it means to be a prayer warrior?
It means so genuinely to be a prayer warrior, knowing that you standing on behalf of somebody, that you taking a need to God and know that you got a connection with God and know that the people around you, they are weak in a moment. You know, sometimes we can get weak in a
Yeah.
moment, and I be around people in that weak moment and I go get what they got and I take it to God, and I know God is going to give them an answer. And God have given so many people an answer. I have had, so one day this young lady, she said, I just want to give up. And I prayed. The next time I saw her, she said, I was getting ready to commit suicide, but God brought me out. It's standing on the half of those that you, it's a need. It's a need for prayer. So much is going on. And that's why we need to have a connection with God. And I thank God for the connection. You know, my family need God. I thank God for that connection. So it's a connection with God. I'm standing in the gap for God's people. I'm interceding for God's people
Yes.
and knowing that an answer is gonna come out of prayer.
Yes, yes. It's so powerful in what you are saying, and you use the word intercessory. God has made us intercessors.
Mhm.
I believe that when He called us and when He brought us out and He
Right,
empowered us, filled us with the power of the Holy Ghost. This is what this podcast is all about, to
right,
talk about women's experiences and what they've gone through. And the word, when we say women who rock, is ROC, women of righteousness, righteousness
right,
of Christ, and to have that kind of impact because you're Christ driven and you
right.
understand what the power of prayer will do, how it'll transform another person's life. So that means so much, and I really appreciate you just really getting a handle on that and begin to just share that even with our audience on today.
Right,
And I
right.
want to ask you even that, how has the power of prayer affected your life and your relationship with God? Just that personal one-on-one relationship with the Lord.
In so many ways, it have affected me in a genuine way because it's a connection with God, and I thank God for the inner peace, and I can always just call on God, just we can just get really raw before God, because God already know. And when I was in a raggedy mess and didn't even understand who God was, and when I found out who God was, I can always call on my Father because it's a connection where I'm at with God. And I thank God for that because it was just so hard at one time when I didn't know who God was. And I found out we can still be in that place of not knowing who God is and just pray and still don't know. But I thank God for the relationship, how He have, and for the intimacy with God. I thank God for that, and I'm saying forgiveness, so many people do you wrong, but I thank God for the forgiveness. I'm free to forgive those that mistreat me, because of the love of God that's down on the inside of me. So it have affected me in a great way. And I'm so grateful for that, because at times I didn't think I could forgive, but with the love of God, I know I can forgive.
That's very powerful. And it just speaks to the fact of how, when you have that connection with God, how it can transform the way you think, the way you
Right.
feel, and you have that commitment with the Lord. And it's a drive. And I want you to speak to as well, Evangelist LaToshia, about the pressures of life that individuals are going through. You mentioned just a moment ago about the young lady who wanted to commit suicide. Those type of pressures that cause a person to just simply want to give up on life. How would you be able to speak to that person when they're going under that type of pressure, and how prayer can turn things around?
And that is so true. Prayer can turn things around. And I would like to say, never give up. The Bible said we all have sinned and failed and come short. And I have had people just wanted to give up. Well, I talked to this lady before, and she said, God don't care about me. I said, why? She said, because I got an abortion. And I say, let me tell you something, God still care. It's one thing that we have to understand. God loves us, and God wants us to come to him in our mess. I was messy. I was jacked up to the floor up, and I came to God in my mess. And it's one thing about it. When you go to God any kind of way. You can go to God nasty, dirty, stinky. God is still gonna love you regardless.